Today I am starting my 50th center. San Francisco Trumpeter. This is the 1942 fit. They have it in a later fit. I think it's either 44 or 45. I can't remember. This is the layer fit. This is what she like more or less when she fought in Guadalcanal and other battles. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be the biggest ship I've so far. Show you a comparison here in a second. Um, but she is New Orleans class. Actually launched between two. The ships built under the treaty that ended World War I, so she had specific sizes and arms that she could be built with. Survived Pearl Harbor, part of the Wake Island Relief Force, but was too late. Also, carrier coverage duty in Guadalcanal. Had quite a bit of damage in that battle, and that's actually part of the reason why I brought back in quite a lot of change. Second most decorated ship in Navy history. So quite a storied ship. Fortunately, she was decommissioned in 47, just shortly after the war. Scrapped. Such is the way that many things like this went. So this is the Tamiya kit, or sorry, not Tamiya, Trumpeter kit. I am going to add quite a bit to it. So I have the White Ensign models photo etch set. It's actually got two, I don't know what to call them, pages, not really frets, of a photo etch for things like the railings and ladders and catapults and cranes and all kinds of things are in photo etch. So I'll be using that quite a lot of detail. I also am replacing the main armament with barrels from Model Master. It's got the main armament as well as the 5-inch guns and any aircraft guns. Those are actually going to be quite a challenge. They're quite small. You might be able to see them there at the top, like little pens. Those are going to be a challenge because I need to actually use those along with the photo etch, and they're not really meant to go together. See what we get out of that. And I also got some 3D printed 20mm anti-aircraft guns to replace the kit part. I actually had a photo etch part for this too, but the barrel itself was just flat and didn't look too good. So I have enough of these to cover what the ship needs. So good bit of little anti-aircraft detail to add there. But that's really it for aftermarket. There's a couple things I still have on order. The life rafts or the Carly floats. I'm going to replace the kit parts with 3D printed parts there as well, just to have them actually have the netting on the bottom rather than solid surface. And I need to get some styrene cylindrical tube to cut for the depth charges. I have photo etch depth charge racks, but no depth charges to put in them. And I did that once, and I didn't really like the way it looked. So I'm gonna make sure that there's something in them this time. So it's a real nice kit. Comes with a very nice painting guide. In 42, she was pretty simple. So all of her vertical surfaces were one color, and all of her horizontal surfaces were another. So it's basically navy blue and deck blue. It's pretty straightforward. I will be building it with the lower hull. I will have that red. Comes with a nice painting guide there, although simple. Of course, the instructions, which are quite nice. The steps there, I've already gone through and annotated my instructions for the places where I have photo etch that I need to go back and add or replace parts with. So I'll be doing that throughout as I go. And then I've spent quite a bit of time looking through a variety of literature on the class and sister ships to give me an ideas of how some things fall. So I don't know how long we'll go today. Kind of depends on how long I want to go, I guess. But I thought it would be interesting to compare. Like I said, this is the biggest ship I've built before. So this is her hull. Just a little bit. This is her hull. See, it goes together. If you want to use the actual lower hull, it's two parts. It does come with a waterline plate if you wanted to build it as a waterline version, where it's just the upper hull. All the ships I've built thus far, though, have had the upper and lower. So I will do well. But just to give you a size comparison, so the San Francisco's it was a heavy cruiser instead of the New Orleans class heavy cruisers. And all I've built so far is a pair of destroyers. I got a Fletcher and USS Livermore class. I also have the I-400, which is a Japanese submarine, same size as these destroyers. But just to give you a size comparison of what it's quite a bit different. And this isn't even a battleship, so this will it won't be extraordinarily more difficult per se. It's just going to be so obviously more anti-aircraft guns, decking, more railings, more rigging. Probably can't see it on the camera, but I do add some rigging by kits. Let's see. That's probably not small enough for you to see it. Maybe a little bit. You can see maybe one of the black lines going over my hand there. I do add rigging kits. I never do shot from the mast. Never do all the rigging, because let's face it, that'd be crazy. Ships had tons and tons of rigging. Make sailing ships look simple, but I'll do enough to get representative of the she would have had, so that we have something there and it's not empty. So I kind of do some of the main lines and some of the front to backs. A lot of the mainmast support, I'll do 3 or 4 of those just to fill the space. Looks like my centerpiece is cracked there. That's all right. About that too much. So yeah, today probably is going to be mostly just kind of going through and doing some basic assembly. I'd like to get the halves of the hull together. I may put the main deck on. I haven't decided yet. I'll have to think about painting this because, as I said, all the vertical surfaces are that navy blue, and all the horizontal surfaces are deck blue. So the assembly and the painting order is important to make sure that I can actually paint things without making things harder for myself than I have to. I'd rather not mask more than just because that becomes messy. So, as we'll get started. I'm just going to kind of follow along with the instructions and build a lot of the sub-assemblies. Where I can, I may go ahead and attach things. Makes sense. One of the nice things about paint is it also acts as an additional adhesive to some extent. Certainly fills some gaps when there are some filled, so having the extra support there never hurts. So yeah, nothing really fancy on the instructions for the barrels. It's just, hey, these are the barrels you got. It does give you sizes for the drill bits, drill barrels, so that insert them appropriately. First things we'll probably do today is actually build the turrets. Real careful here because I don't want to lose the one A guns. They're tiny. Drop them, I will never see them again. Like they're actually heat sealed in each section. So should make it keep track of. So that's good. No real extra photo etch for the turrets themselves. Some photo etch kits will have handrails and the like for them, but don't have that. Everything's kind of spread out at the moment because I haven't worked on a kit in a while. So I've got stuff here. So, one nice thing, kit actually molds the observation planes in clear, so you can mask the canopy and paint the rest, and then you still have a clear canopy. Kind of nice. Also have a lot of photo etch for it. Because it really needs it. The kit part is not fantastic. And it's good enough. It's good enough. Nice to replace the parts with things that are more scale appropriate. We have 3 turrets, 4 turrets and 1 aft. And the instructions here for the front turrets. Came off its sprue. Neat, handy. They're all the same though, so it wouldn't have particularly mattered. Thing I'm not sure about So with the kit, life raft or the Harley floats, you can see that they're just solid. And you could paint them to where it looks like they have some depth to them. There really should be well, head there, or slatted surface that the crew would stand on in case that they needed to evacuate. And for the kit piece, you actually have to drill the holes out, the underside, so that they line up nicely and sit there on the top of the turret. So I'm not going to need those. Because the 3D printed parts are just generic, they're not particular chip. Probably not drill this out. Actually, probably drill these side holes as well. Sure, why they drilled them out on the sides, but not on the top. So going to probably, well, ultimately I will remove the molded in ladder because I'll use a replacement for it. I'll leave it there now just to remind me that I need to go back later. So I guess I wasn't quite truthful when I said no footage for the turrets because we have a ladder for it. But instance set has, as would any of the large sets, has placement ladders, both vertical and inclined stairs. To replace around the ship. I'll remove the ladder on there at a later time and replace it with a photo etched piece that's a little bit more the scale thickness and actually is off the ship. It's being molded. I may not use this particular. This is the one that actually came off on its own and actually ripped out a little bit of the plastic. I may use that as a test piece. Is the other the actual. Need to see. I need to look at. So right now the instructions just say make 2. I don't know the differences between the aft turrets off the top of my head, so I'll to the back. Look. So why don't we go ahead and do that before too crazy. Rear turrets. Instructions look exactly the same. Now I see notes. I see one difference. The the rear turret has one extra Carly float back. I think that's the only difference I can see in the instructions here. We're just going to go ahead and make all 3 of them. I'm not going to put the Carly floats on now, 1 because I don't have them, but 2 because I'm going to paint those separately, then attach them to be not quite the same color of gray, maybe blue. that they stand out just a little bit from whatever they're resting upon, whether it's a turret or whatever else. At least then it will some noticeability that it wouldn't have otherwise. So Carly floats will come later. And actually putting the turrets on. Looks like actually, that's unfortunate. Looks like I might have to actually attach them or put the main deck on. May not main deck on. Because in the instructions it shows a cap on the bottom attaches to the turret through the deck. When I've built kits like this before, usually the pin on the bottom of the turret attaches it to the ship. Has a little rubber insert that allows you to push the turret pin and holds it in place so you can actually remove it if need be, for whatever reason. Doesn't seem like that option here. Right, so there are 3 turrets. Go ahead and grab the bases of. The molding on the main gun's actually not bad. Kit. They're not quite to scale. Having the brass barrels, they're already drilled out. Try to do. It was something as small as the 20mm aircraft guns. See it anyway. But on the main guns, 11-inch. 8-inch. Sorry, way off. It's quite noticeable. So this is going to be probably a long build. A lot of the photo etch components are small, very small. As I said, there are lots of them because of the scale of the ship, size of the ship. So it'll take a little while to get through it all. Stream as much of it as I can. There appears to be interest in it. Here's another place so you can see. This is one of the funnel stacks, and it should be. Should actually be able to see through it. So I actually will cut out right there, and all of the extra material. Place it with a phone. Same with the crane arm here. It's just not some actually mold practice, but one of those places where photo etch adds some detail you can't have otherwise. It's nice to the end of the day, not many people know, but I'll know. For the kit parts, of course, we can just use standard types of glue, plastics. I like Tamiya's glue. That's what I'll use. Photo etch, drop the pieces. Where'd you go? We'll find you in a second. This is why I keep a flashlight. Be a model building experience if I didn't drop a piece. And they're always the small pieces. This flashlight sucks. Where's my good flashlight? Dropped one of the little rangefinders. So now I get to find it. Every once in a while I think I should put a light under my desk for this very purpose. Because I do not see it. I'm sure this is the thrilling content that everybody wants to see. Ah, there we go. And it went all the way back there. Even went under a cable. I was really trying to hide. There, crisis averted. That is not a piece that I have extras of. Anyway, we'll use regular glue for the plastic pieces that we can use here. For the photo etch and the brass barrels, just to super glue. I have a couple different kinds depending on need. Some of it dries faster. Nice. Helpful. And some of it is nice that it dries slowly. Chance to around a little bit. Most of the painting, airbrush. Some areas I will use spray cans, especially for the primer. I've got a nice Tamiya primer that I use. It's really good at. It's really fine, so it doesn't obscure a detail. So really helping me find gaps that I did not fill correctly. Notice. Up these pieces here. giving myself time to think how I want to do these barrels. So let's see. So let's take one of these barrels. I think I need to cut the barrel off its bag. The barrel's entry. Carrot. Or I just go slicing and dicing. Let's see. Kit piece. I'll hold it a second. I think I just scored it. Probably ought to place this exacto knife. There we go. That goes. So, plastic kit piece. This is the brass replacement. And sure enough, what I need to do is pop off the barrel and replace it. You might be able to see widths of the barrel compared to brass is a little bit wider. So, let's cut the barrel off. Do it right up next to the shroud. To go onto that. Okay. Something. It's a nice little piece of plastic. Clean off shroud where we. All right. So I've got a variety of drill bits. Driver. Instructions say that this needs here. Not actually. That's. Let's see. It's good because it's my biggest bit. Try that. I can always fill the hole and try again if I have to. I want to make sure that this is perpendicular to the surface of the shroud. Seems awfully low. To be. So one way to do that is these bits do have a sharp point. You can use the tip of the X-Acto knife or kind of find the middle spot. The drill bit can bite into. Try to help you start at least centered. Stopping and checking for to make sure I am. There's not a lot of shroud. Up. Through a side. I think I have mentioned that. I also don't want to go any further than I have to. But to go here. This is a reference here. Checking from time to time, make sure off at an angle. Something odd like that. Pulling the other barrel out made me realize that I didn't want to actually be parallel with the bottom shroud. I actually needed an angle there. Getting there. My biggest bit, but it's not quite big enough, which is nice. It'll make the barrel sit nice and flush and snug in its shroud. Should be fine. You might see why I say this is going to be a slow build. Just being stubborn. 5 minutes to do one of 9 main armament barrels. Alright, so we're not perfectly aligned. Pretty darn close. As far as where the back side of the placement barrel meets the shroud, it's good enough at the right angle. Comparing it to its companions. So, original. Lighting is so bad today. Cells. Seems a little original. Brass barrel replacement. I think it makes a nice difference. Certainly in person it makes sense. And again, you can actually see the barrel, which is a big improvement. So, just gotta do that 8 more times. Components out of the way. I didn't put the bottom pieces on because I wasn't exactly sure how the barrel placements went. But it looks like since they just replace the barrel shroud, plastic shroud stays, then just attach. Then I could have put the bottoms on, but we'll do all that in a minute. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pop off the barrels here. Off of their trees. I'll wait to actually cut the barrel off until ready to do that particular piece. Because it's nice to kind of have a angle reference. I need like a net to catch it. Need to clean up. I don't need to clean up the barrel itself, obviously, because it's off. Shroud does need to be on, obviously, because it. So because it will keep shredded by the sharp plastic. Last kit I built, tank. Well, armored V tank. Go some of those videos. See those. I have over there. Already watching this on. I haven't done it recently. I also do some video streaming. None of it consistently. Time to time. Camera up so you can actually see what I'm doing. I tend to get closer and closer to self. If I don't have the camera right spot, then it doesn't really make much sense to stream. Can't see what I'm doing. Try to make that centered. For the complexity of ship models, so many details. Add if you want. Some people even go as far to adding crewmen, officers on the deck. Never have done that much myself. I like the details. I like the adding stuff like this. It's obviously something I don't have to do. It just look better in my opinion. I don't know. I've never really liked the look of the little figures on the deck. They've definitely improved. Used to be all you could really get is little flat photo etch pieces for the crewmen on the deck. Now you can actually get almost little 3D printed. Remember, this is in 1/350th scale, so every inch on this thing is 150 inches in reality. So imagine that representation of crewmen. Salvage that one pretty well. So we'll see how straight they are when I get all three of them on a turret, huh? Bounce around in my builds though. One before this was a tank. Again, armored vehicle. World War II. Stug. That's my zero. That was another ship actually, where I showed size comparator. I do motorcycles and cars, everything but. And I definitely take artistic license, even on historical subjects. At the end of the day, it's a hobby. I'm not building this for a museum. I'm not even building these to compete to. But so I'm building them for me, and I build them. Historical subjects, I try to stay pretty accurate. Sometimes ease wins out over accuracy. This will be my first time using 3D printed parts. Previous ship builds, I've actually built the anti-aircraft guns out of photo etch and brass barrels like this. It took a long time. Well, I was proud of it. Yeah, you could noticed. I kind of tried to balance the use of modeling skill. Against how long I could spend an hour and a half building one AA gun like I did for my 3 quad mounts on my I-400 submarine. And again, they look great. Much better than the plastic part they replaced. Where I can spend minutes on the 3D printed replacement, at least as good. It's just not seating all the way. So, from model to model, my sources vary. How much I do in replacement parts and which, I'll just rely on the modern 3D printing. It's so good. These guns obviously won't stay brass color. Same. Navy blue. It's just about everything. I, this isn't my favorite camo scheme. It's measure 20. Everything tends to kind of run together, which scheme, it's maybe not a bad thing. But for a scale model sitting on your display cabinet, our later war kind of dazzle camouflage, interesting visually, a lot easier to see. Details on the kit. So some instances here, I do wish I had the later fit for her. That would be the camo scheme. But like I said at the beginning, this is the fit she was in when she bought and bought. Now it's kind of what I want. So that's what it's going to be. I'll dig into my model building skill set, some dry brushing and washes, paint washes and the like to try to accentuate shadows and highlight higher points so that I can actually distinguish. Like I said, for life rafts, the Harley float, I will get those in 3D printed pieces. Then I'll also paint them, if not the exact same color, a lot of highlighting, then slightly lighter, stand out. As well, I think maybe a couple of exceptions on this particular ship are always mounted onto a surface, like solid surface. Like 3 of them are mounted to searchlight tower, so they'll obviously stand out pretty well, regardless of how it. Ones that are attached to the tops and sides of the turret, well, so stand out-ish. Because these I'm drilling are just barely not big enough, just slightly too small. Barrels don't want to. I feel like this is moving a little faster now. I need to play with my camera settings. It's showing up on my screen dim. What I'm looking at. I mean, I've got 3 lights. Not sure why it seems so dim. Hopefully it's viewable. A lot of the build will be kind of slow like this, though. Like I said, I mean the spotlight tower that I mentioned earlier, kit piece, tower is scaffolding kind of looking. It's not solid, but the kit piece more or less is, or at least very thick cross beams. I actually have a piece. The photo etch comes flat, and I've got to fold it in shape. So those kinds of things take time. Again, I think they're worth it. They add some very nice detail. It'll take a little while. I actually wouldn't be surprised if I paused the build at some point, grabbed one of my cycles or something, and together, so I don't get burned out on this one. Yeah. last destroyer I built, I actually kind of got burnt out of it towards the end. Put a lot more into it than I did at first. But I'll try, like I say, I'll try to stream of as much of it as I can. Some of it's easier than others. Obviously, it's not obvious. When I use a spray can, a rattle can, step outside to do that. So that's a little harder to stream. But there, I have an airbrush booth. So I can do my airbrushing inside with fumigating the whole house. So I will stream that kind of stuff. Not gonna have a whole lot of complex airbrushing right now. It's really colors. Still gotta make sure you're doing good technique. Barrel seated is hurting my fingers. I had a slightly bigger, but I do not. Oh, looks like I have an extra barrel, plastic barrel too. As I don't have. I have 4 more left now, which is good because I only have 4 more brass barrels. Awkward. This ship, as she's built, or will be built, but what she's representing, wasn't her initial configuration. It's from 34, 35, whenever she was 30s. They added a lot of anti-aircraft guns to her, much needed. But what they added were quad 1.1 engines, and they terrible. They jammed a lot. Um, their rate of fire was not efficient. Really, they just did not do it. They later ended up replacing them quad 40mm cannons. Kind of became standard late war anti-aircraft armament, and they did much better. Of course, they also had improvements in direction finding, range finding equipment that done direction, make sure that they were firing where they needed to be, but probably didn't hurt. 1.1s that she had and were quite lackluster. Actually, it became pretty apparent. Most of our ships are. But I really had to worry about before. over my instructions on purpose. Easier to up all the scrap coming out here. So she had the 3 triple 8-inch turrets. She had 8 5-inch guns that could be used surface target engagement ships or land targets. Could also be used for anti-aircraft. Supplement the one or the time of. I think it's. I should know this, but I think it's 4 quad 1-inch mils. Got 10. It is 10 20mm single cannon mounts, also for AA. All that, and sometimes it was not enough. Her sister ship, the Minneapolis. Lots of ships by kamikaze. She survived, though not. All right, we're getting there. Forward to seeing how they look attached to their turrets. So if you're around here, I've been modeling since I was a kid. Not a kid. It's been about 30 years, I guess, since I built my first one. I built my first one, I meant stood there and watched my dad build it for me. I'm sure I did a thing or two here. Yeah, I'm building it. Still have in my display cabinet. Started out building snap-tight models and not painting them. Glue that probably you can't buy anymore. I'm sure it was carcinogenic. Yeah, I've been building off and on ever since. I slowed down quite a bit in college. Mostly because I didn't have the space. Also time. Others. I was doing multiple lessons off center again. Started with mostly 2 aircraft. A lot of cars. Shipbuilding is actually just a recent, really recent. got 2 destroyers in the I-400 sub. Built all those probably in the last 3 years. I know I streamed the last destroyer, not to completion, but I streamed quite. I think I also streamed I-400. I don't think I streamed. Doing this is it's fun, kind of streaming it. Most of the time I end up talking to myself, but not different from normal. But I've had some nice people, some conversations with people. Seven. Something a little less finger intensive. Some of the Superstructure. I don't know that I'll attach the 2 halves of the bolt together today, at least not on camera. I should say I probably will do them today, but not on camera because cussing a lot. Trying to get everything aligned quite right, and not having any gaps or ridges. Quite quite challenging. I like recording myself cussing a whole lot. That may end up being a while off stream. I did this. Too many of those, because see, some degree. Really, what I probably ought to do is just video these and then edit them. If anybody actually wants to watch me do 9 of these for the last, I've been doing this an hour, so I'll probably do this for 45 minutes. Edit that down to just a couple of them. Post a shorter video too. But I probably won't. Also, I should be saving these to my hard drive, so upload them right from to YouTube. So if I ever wanted to go back and edit them, that would actually be difficult. Streaming is kind of just an extension of the hobby, so. I don't see myself going effort to do that. Vamos. Guys having a nice day. Very pretty here today. The sun's shining. It's cool. Not outside with the dogs for a few minutes. Yeah, this will probably just be a project that pick away at over the course of weekends here and there. In the past, I've had short streams where you stream for like an hour. What I'm doing. Sometimes longest I've ever streamed modeling. That's right. Absolute longest single stream built my computer. Cussing. There's a lot of that in there too. So I have a series of videos of me building my current computer, mostly of the water cooling. And it seems like no matter how well you plan, always just end up finding a surprise, and I found out. And ultimately I did. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. Ended up spending, it must have been 2 hours trying to get the issue fixed. Water block for my graphics card was long expected, and it's not that the manufacturer had the specs or anything. It didn't look because I expected it to be longer than an already long air cooler. But it was, and that meant that the spot that I wanted to put my reservoir acceptable. I had to get some brackets to let me shift things over so I could actually have my reservoir about where I wanted it. Where else to put it? Oh, of course the last one just slides in like no problem. That's funny. So anyway, there ended up being a lot of swearing associated with that. All right. That took probably about 45 minutes, but end product is a lot nicer. Barrels are more realistically sized. They're actually opening at the end. And in some cases, I would have just drilled out the barrel myself. These are a little too thin. Just the tip of the barrel is really hard to see, but the tip of the barrel there is just really too thin. The correct scale for one thing, and then actually trying to drill it out in a way that I can actually see what I'm likely have worked. So for actual gluing things together, I'm using Tamiya Extra Thin. This is a quick set variety. They do have just a regular set, and I actually for that. Sometimes you don't want it to just set immediately. That's what I. This is the Tamiya. It actually. One stinks, but it actually basically melts the plastic together. So you get a very good bond, and it would help you if you ever need to remove it. Right. I had a problem with Stug that I built last, where the instructions weren't very clear, and I put something in place. Totally gonna blame the and I quite literally had to chisel the piece off to get it to so I could put things back together in the right. Contrast that to like a super glue. They tend to dry really fast as well, but their bonds are really brittle. So take something off that you super glued down, it's actually not that. And then I also occasionally will just use plain white glue, Elmer's glue. Use that a lot on clear parts because it's fog, clear plastic. Also use it sometimes on photo etch. It'll give a little bit of flex to the piece. Not the strongest white glue, but sometimes it can be a little bit more resilient because it has that flexibility. Okay, so we've got the base turrets. Nothing fancy there, it's just base and the locating pin that goes through the deck. And we will glue down on here. It's on. It's a little bit of time that we have to them around as necessary. Get them nice and lined up. It's a little bit. So I like to test fit just to make sure what I'm getting into. Nothing particularly complicated here. It's like this last one is just not quite deep enough. Reason. It's the one that shaved the problem solved. Okay. So I tend to like to not solid surface like I had on the bottom. I tend to try to fill the spot that's going in blue. Say that it kind of depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll add it to the inside. In this case, we're adding it. It's just enough glue to pack these in place. Make sure that they're all level when cross-eyed. Very cross-eyed. This would have been a challenge with the plastic part or the brass part, just making sure that the barrels are aligned. But all the more so because I cut the barrel off and then have some sort of jig to make sure everything lined up. It certainly doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. These barrels are articulating. More often than not, they stowed. Even though this is the quick set, it actually gives me a second to play around with, as you can kind of see. Now, it's nice that it actually like seeps into the crevices quite well. Stop messing with it. Pretty happy with that. So I will actually while that's drying so it doesn't screw up the barrels that I just meticulously aligned. Little pincer tweezer. Keep the barrels from hitting the ground. Really what I should have done is not put the bottom plate on. Yeah, the pin keeps it from sitting flat, so you live and you learn. So again, I want to make sure I just don't need to trim down any of these locating pins. Too. Some kits I build is perfect. Others you have to do little modifications like this one. It's usually not. Especially with more modern kits, recent kits. Building some 60s. But any modern mold, some of the bigger companies have to worry so much about fitment, which is nice. It is interesting sometimes to see the differences in the quality of the plastics, though. Seems to may have to filler around shrouds. And I'll wait for these to dry really well, and then back I've got a nice easy filler. Certainly use things like Superstructure. Sand it down. Where I have it just goes on like glue. Cool. Cool, good liquid filler. Kind of wipe off the excess with a Q-tip, let it dry, and you're good to go. Alright, that is turret 2. Being overly picky about the exact alignment when not really all that much of a difference. It's all of a sudden done kit. Too many other things. Down. careful about this, though, that said that are kind of melted plastic. Finger to it. It's imprint. Fingerprint. And it's prudent to not. As I corrected myself earlier, these are 8 inch main arm, as compared to the 16-inch mine on like an Iowa class battleship. Quite different. Still wouldn't want it shooting at me though. Alright. Back to the first one. Side here. That's good. So, other than, like I said, I need to do a little filling. Um, I also need the Carly floats. I need to remove folded in ladder. So with the foot. I don't want to do that right now. Wait for the barrels to dry. Start doing this. Probably should have done the other. Then put the barrels on. Photo etch ladders are easy to knock off. Ask me how. So I want to do any sanding and filling that I need to do on this before I go back and attach a ladder. The one ensign set, and again, most large sets, other manufacturers, what they'll tend to do is they'll just give you like a long length of ladder from which you cut the length. That way they can just provide plenty of length ladder application that you put it to length. I'll be honest, sometimes adding the ladder doesn't add much. It's in an area you will never see. One of my destroyers had ladders going up the mainmast. It should have. But the kit mast just didn't support them very well. Did not look quite right. So while it was correct, yeah, it had some nice detail. One was a pain in the ass. Two, trimmings. So what those will ultimately do is sit on the deck, of course. Two on the main deck and one slightly raised. You can actually get a wooden deck for this kit. So I'm painting it blue. Didn't really seem like a worthwhile expenditure. Kit details itself is not bad. I don't know how well it comes on the camera, but there is flanking detail there. It would be wood, and it would then be metal, non-metal. So I don't know where. Oh, but just that you can get a deck for them. So these, of course, will just sit on. So I think I'm going to wait a minute though to attach those because again I've got two little end caps, and obviously those have to go in through the underside of the deck. But once I attach the deck to the hole, I can no longer. So I think I'm going. Hole itself fits pretty well around the deck. It squeezes it a little bit nice. There is a bit of a difference in height before foredeck and the aft deck. There's a piece that assembles it, obviously. So I think this will do nicely. But as I said, I need to decide exactly how to do turrets. I'd rather paint the turrets and paint the deck and then attach the turrets to the deck. But I have to think about that. But in the meantime, we can build some more substructures. Some of which I'll paint and mask, others I'll assemble in ways that do that. One of the things I'm going to have to cut off, for instance, on the deck is the anchor chain. I have a photo etch piece that's much nicer, and I'll actually drill out the location for which the anchor chain goes in, down to where the anchor hangs. I also need to remove the prop guards because they're just this terribly molded. Excuse me, terribly molded piece of plastic that I'll cut off and replace with a photo etch part. Lots of little things. It's easy to get overwhelmed. Little bits and pieces here. A lot of this is just putting stuff on the main deck, and I don't want to do that until ready with my painting strategy. Let's do some simple assemblies. That sounds nice. Sure. The work we just had to do. So, for instance, here's something that'll be a challenge. This is a piece that fills that space between upper and lower decks, main deck, which is obviously a vertical piece. It needs to be one color, but all the deck around it needs to be a different color. So if I attach it now, then paint it, I've got to mask it. It's fine. Technical term. So this piece here that I was thinking about building now, in some ways it would be easier to paint the deck, paint this top part, paint the sides, then assemble it. Which, unfortunately, that's true in a lot of places, shipbuilding, especially with this particular scheme. It becomes complicated. Some of them are simpler, so like the aircraft hangar here. Yeah, I mean, attaching the sides and then attaching the deck to it, the top, means it's something I kind of have to mask off, but it's a larger surface. Mask. Could paint the deck, mask it, paint the sides. That's pretty. But you can kind of see as you go along, you build these sub-assemblies, and then they just get attached onto the deck. I have a lot of sub-assemblies. So this one's quite complicated, right? You've got multiple levels on the superstructure attached on top of it. It's almost easier to paint them and then assemble them rather than attach them all together and then try to paint. All the vertical surfaces, horizontal surfaces have to be one color, and all the vertical surfaces have to be. So it makes it a little bit. I actually need to do a little thinking on that, I think. Right? Just start attaching things. can kind of see my notes here and there. Noted that I have some photo etch I need to add. But I never find myself assembling a ship model exactly as the instructions define. I tend to paint all of the things that are one color at the same time. Why don't we go ahead and do the hangar and just see what it looks like. Part that I was going to build. It's actually a little complicated if it's all together. So I'm gonna hold off on that. This one is pretty straightforward. This is off of that one. This is off of this one. Oh, I was wrong. The searchlight tower is actually somewhat scaffolded, like it should be, here across the middle. Photo etch will look much better. It's not as bad as I thought. Another thing that I don't have in this particular photo etch set is a lot of the hatches. So in some ships, photo etch, you'll actually get placements for all the hatches. Well, it does come with quite a bit of photo etch. This particular set doesn't have hatches, but see here, scaffolding tower, a lot finer, plastic very. So lots of details like that add the value from the image. Let's go here. This is actually the hangar door. So early in her life, simple, like a garage door like you have now, just rolled up. Later, they replaced it, accordion style door. I don't know what reasoning behind that was. I don't know if they were simpler to maintain or manufacture or what. No, her original, not entirely. It's quite banged up. Bottle now. Need to measure the Carly floats that I have with this and see what size they are so I order the right ones. They could come in sizes from small as 10 man capacities all the way up to 60. see how big these are so I can kind of estimate the size, the size capacity they might have held. Couldn't find that anywhere. Well, I haven't really looked too hard yet. And I think that's because it varied ship to ship, even the same class. Get pictures of New Orleans instead of Cisco. She had her Carly floats in different places. So it could be that there just wasn't standard that particular item as to how many and where they were and what size they were, etc. I didn't know until recently that the Carly floats weren't just like traditional raft, like whitewater rafting or something like that. They actually were just a tube, plated tube, sometimes of, and it had a wooden deck that was lashed to it net, and the net actually sank. Deck actually sank into the water. Boat kept. Thus, you get in the raft standing rather than sitting or laying down. So I did not know that. That's how they worked. So in looking, I learned something. This doesn't want. Tape. That pretty well. Attach the deck. To kind of show you something where you can see it. Um, so vertical surfaces, as I said a couple times, will need the same color. This is as well. Look at a piece like this. Have splinter guards and kinds of surfaces that are vertical, same color as the sides of the ships and the bulkheads of the superstructure, etc., etc. And complicated, as you might. Get this lined up. Side of the deck has some indicator lines. Also surprised to find out that it's folded the aircraft that she had. You could have 4 aircraft in this tiny little. Okay. Couple places. Top of the bulkhead and the underside of the upper deck. That's a little filling on, probably. The primer I use isn't a filling primer. Added with skewer detail. So this sits backside and aft. Maybe. Obviously, deck in place. Oh, yeah, you can't even see what I'm doing. It's one large component. I will leave the other details off for now. There's a set of bulkheads here, and then another raised deck on top of it. Probably wait to add those, patch those once I've got them painted. Easier to paint separately, along with their ladders. What other sub-assemblies I can do without painting difficult? Let's see what else. So as I'm building her, she has her portholes open. Learned reading that during her refit, added quite a bit of electronics. They weren't able to quite balance out the additional weight. She ended up sitting lower in the water, and they had to cover and weld closed all of the portals, especially on our lower decks, sides of the ship. The portals themselves aren't watertight. They were originally designed to offer ventilation and some light. Up having to cover them water. I do have one other cruiser like this. I have the Indianapolis. Probably be my next ship build before I get into my battleships. have a few battle crews. Here on it, but it's bigger. Although I do have some relatively smaller battleships, like the battleship Texas. It's a little smaller than, say, a Missouri. Ask me though. I have my money. Somebody does that. Got this at a. So if it's better. Get on there. Simple fit, but sometimes when I have a complex, not really complex, but ill-fitting piece, pack it down in a couple places if I can. Try to work the rest of it out. This one has this corner must fit there. The back must stop back here. This starting point. Making sure you it's not really lining very well. It's the stability that the packed pieces allow. Rise so quickly. Let's do a good fit. Ultimately. And down the road there will be railings. Edges. Double take here because it's fingerprint sticks up edge there. It's supposed to. Luckily there's no that off a little bit. Forget about not getting my fingers anywhere. I'm gonna leave it there for now. There's some supports that go on the underside of those tubs. They're photo etched, and I want to do that. Obviously some pop. So their substructure. It's also the location of upper 4. Right. This is the bridge. Flashing on. Oh, didn't realize I had a typo there. Thanks for letting me know. Maybe I like rouge lights instead of rogue lights. But no, you're right. Thank you. Also, welcome in. Definitely fix that after. I finish here today. Till I'm pro streamer though, I have typos in my bio. It's been a while since I've played a rogue. This one. Skull, I guess. Skull the hero. Mostly I play Final Fantasy though. Hopefully in a couple months. Raid tier streaming that again. It's been a while since I've felt the urge to stream. Although it's kind of a I stream it when I'm doing high-end raids and in-game content. It's kind of hard to chat with what are watching. Well, I kind of like streaming this stuff. Not everybody interested in this kind of thing can actually chat when people. I like Raven. Raven. If you're really bored, if you're coming to watch me cut my finger. I know, you just couldn't stay away from dulcet tone. My lo-fi hip-hop beats. By Twitch. It's a ship. Yeah, not a plane. Yeah, just really getting started with it, so he's a ship. Ships are just planes for the water. I guess I'll allow it. Of all the statements that are out there, that's one of them. Hey, Pirate. Pirate is definitely my dulcet tones. ASMR going on. Sit here and read stats books. Help everybody go to sleep. You don't know what sleep is? Cool when you're older, because you'll want more of it. Upgrading your computer for work, or upgrading your home. Why can't you walk, Raven? Or is that not something you can talk about on stream? Leg day. Leg day sucks. I've told this story several times, but ran a half marathon with my brother, and rewarded ourselves afterwards by going to Brazilian Steakhouse. You know, we just burned all those calories. We might as well eat them back and then some. And we got there, we're eating, had to the facilities, and I got up only to find that the bathroom was actually upstairs after having just run a marathon. Half marathon specific there. Uh, that was not my happiest of days. My laptop for GAN game. Oh, I'd never really heard about having problems with Linux, but I've never used it, so. When are we taking you to a steakhouse? When are you coming up? I'll take you to a steakhouse. Really good one downtown. It's really more than just a steakhouse. They bring by just massive amounts of food, all kinds of meats. Not a great place to go if you're vegetarian. They do have a salad bar, and the salad bar is quite good. So the this kid is not. Yeah, that's probably about right, Pirate. Depends on how many stops you make. One of the nice things that I don't have to worry about is working and gaming on the same machine. My work laptop can only be used for work. I can't use it or what I want to. I mean, it's just a laptop. So, when I was in grad school, I had a machine. I have to use. I didn't know that about their drivers. Again, never had to use Linux, so. Although at one point I was having trouble with my water cooling setup, and someone told me I needed to upgrade to Linux. That would have fixed my problem. Yeah, it's that whole grad school thing, right? That slow thing. This is actually kind of cool though. It's the bridge. I actually built that on any of I've done. So right now, how long you guys have been watching? I'm just kind of building some of the sub-assemblies. Paint scheme for this ship at the time I'm building it, presentation that I'm building. All the vertical structure, all the vertical sections are the same color, and the horizontal sections are all the same color. Masking and painting is complicated if I stack everything at once. So like I'll start with a structure like this. I'll paint the deck. I'll mask off the deck. I'll paint the sides. Um, and I'll do that for all of the pieces that stack up in the superstructure, and then I can glue them down and do any type I need to at that point. But that way I don't have to do an obscene amount of masking to build the ship. But I just started this today, so I haven't gotten very far. I've got the three main gun turrets done. I had to replace the plastic barrels with brass barrels. That took about 45 minutes. Not probably the most thrilling of content. Is what it says on the tin, I guess. This is going to be a long project. It's the biggest ship I've ever built, so. Back in the beats. Thought you said you couldn't walk, but you can dance? I mean, I guess you could dance in place. Not your legs. So I had to learn how to. This is just a service actually through Twitch. They have a whole bunch of different music channels you can, and it sets it up in a way so that it plays in stream while I'm doing this now. But when I go back to the recording later, it doesn't get recorded, so I don't get taken copyright. Not that I monetize my videos anyway. Like I thought I understood how that worked, and I ran one, and large sections of my video got muted. So I had music playing in the background that I thought I could do it in my recording, and I was not supposed to. So it may have been one of those things that was just YouTube being cautious. Not something I wanted to challenge. This is explicitly from Twitch, and it's explicitly not included recording track. Future person, if you're watching this on YouTube, talking about. Oh, but you're not uploading it to YouTube, are you? I think that's the thing. Since I'm actually recording it and uploading it to YouTube. Uh, Actually, I thought I saw when I started that YouTube channel, I thought my grading videos would be more viewed, or just general gaming videos, but it's actually my modeling videos that have been. I do have a YouTube 95. Guess what's there? Video games. But yes, Raven, this is a ship from World War II. It's the USS San Francisco. She was a heavy cruiser. Second most decorated ship in U.S. Survived the war. Commissioned and scrapped, and is the biggest ship I've ever built. So, well, obviously I haven't built it yet, in the process of building. It's the fourth ship I've built, so in comparison, this is San Francisco's hull. And this is the USS Livermore destroyer. Kind of see small size difference there. So it'll be interesting to have these both on the shelf because they took part in a lot of the same engagements. So I knew that the heavy cruiser would be bigger than the destroyer. I didn't quite realize quite how much different until I put them side by side this morning. And then beyond that, I've actually got quite a number of battleships that are even bigger. Which thankfully will fit in the display cabinet that I built. Maybe not all of them. All of them. I actually don't know the answer to that. You have stumped me. You get one energy. Not really worth anything. Too excited. Surprising amount of pieces here that are light sanding. Previous kits manufacturers, and there seem to be higher quality. Our plastic. This is actually different. You'll walk downstairs, someone hold your leg. That sounds like a good way to actually trip while going downstairs. Secret is just not to have stairs. Don't worry about it that way. I tend to build this as the battle damaged version. but, uh, Kira's. I think it'll be mostly covered up. Again, hole anymore. Probably should have warned you before I did that. Hope nobody got motion sick there. Well, I have a couple people that are responsive in chat. I should ask. I found a app where I could use my phone. There's another camera. I put it like this. Got one camera that's looking top down. The other is looking at the same angle as I am. Curious as to what you guys think about that. Is it interesting? Is it distracting? It's not ideal for detail work, probably. I now have a cell phone between me and what I'm doing. But this way you can actually see what I'm looking at. It's not always clear from the top-down perspective. You like it because you get so much content in one screen. I was just worried that it might be distracting because I've got two cameras basically showing the same thing, but from drastically different angles. This is obviously a trial because, as you can see on the camera, it says it's a trial piece of software. But I don't know if it seems like it adds some benefit. Maybe I'll add it as. What do you think, Pirate? You like it? Sell hand picks? I'll have to go to a different platform for that, I think. Also, I'm pretty sure nobody wants that thing. I know. Careful and mark some of the things. Not adding, so I have to come back and do them. Different color. I don't know, I just thought it'd be nice because when you're looking down, you can't really always see what I'm doing. Now I'm realizing that camera where it is, you can't. How to do. Let's see if I can. It's part of the screen very much. Is that better? What do you think? You guys like it there? Because now it's in a different spot. You can actually see what I'm doing. Looks good so far. That's good to hear. Is that data analysis competition part of coming up soon? Don't know the details yet. Just that you've been voluntold. You something to shoot for them. Oh, nice. Forgot why you opened Photoshop. Did it have some hand pics? I have to work on getting blind if I'm trying to try these two cameras. Like bad about it, not bad enough about it with one, let alone two. Need to put like tape down on my my desk. This is the area in which you work. Dig into the details of this app, see if there's a way to keep the screen on. Actually use it as a just as a screen myself. That way it's not just in the way. Oh yes, Irvin, they'll definitely be painted. But a lot of the assembly has to happen first. Otherwise, see gaps that you didn't know they were there and you have to come back for later. So like Destroyer I showed you a second ago. I did all the painting on it. So I did all the painting on this. And it started the same way, just a bunch of parts that a lot of assembly on ahead of time. So this is all plastic that I painted. In some cases brass for the photo etch parts, but maybe you can see it, the rigging, black lines. See it. This was my most recent ship. And as I noted, size difference between what I'm building now. It's quite stark. The wires that I used for the rigging, is that what you're asking? Um, in my case, I used kind of like a nylon thread. That's about scale thickness and adds rigidity. So it actually adds strength to the build because almost becomes structural in a way. So we've got a lot done here. As far as like the superstructure components go. So if I just kind of put some of these together here. So you can see when I stack them why I don't stack them all immediately and then try to paint them later, because there's no way I'd be able to get into all the nooks and crannies. And actually paint them well. So we're getting a good piece of the superstructure there already. Not going to stay with that. Good part of the superstructure already, the main superstructure. How many hours did the last one take? See how many of the hours I uploaded to YouTube. I uploaded that one. Oh, I didn't. I thought I had this. I thought I had it up there. I have on my bug and my intro. I'm not very good at estimating these kind of things about how long I took. The last one, Destroyer, I probably spent. I must have been at least 100 hours on it. Um, just looking at what I uploaded for my zero, it's a much smaller thing. 5, 6, 7.5, 11. I probably had 20 hours in my zero, which was 1/72nd scale aircraft. Obviously, much simpler build. So yeah, these ships get kind of complicated because I mean, especially when I add a lot of the details that I do. I add these photo etch sheets, so like all of this stuff adds detail to the ship, but it has to be folded and assembled. So like this here is got to be folded into the searchlight towers. These are all the railings that'll go around the sides of the ship. Got both incline ladders and, or are they the vertical ladders? This is the crane assembly that I'll have to fold into shape. These are parts of the catapult that was used to launch the reconnaissance planes that I'll have to fold into shape. Radar, probably. So in the plastic bag here, I've got several of the different radars that I have to fold and bend into shape. I have the depth charge racks that are made of photo etch, that I then have to cut strips of styrene tube, plastic tube for. These barrels that I added, I had to cut the plastic barrel off. I had to cut the plastic barrel off and replace it with brass barrel. I got these little 20mm aircraft guns 3D printed. Replace the quite lackluster parts from the kit. Oh, camera's not. I'll have to add these. And you know, there's the assembly, and then I've got a prime and paint, finished assembly, and then weather. So 100 hours is probably I put into the destroyer. This one's probably gonna take more. I've been streaming today already for 3 hours. You'd cry if you folded something wrong. Yeah, I've done that. The folding something wrong, not necessarily the crying. You won't. But I may have done that too. Yeah, right now I'm just trying to get through a lot of the basic assembly. If I can get a lot of the basic assembly done, then I can start painting. Some of it I'm not doing right now because I need to think out how I'm going to do it. So I thought I had a good idea of how I was going to do some of this, but I actually need to give it thought. Like this part here. You have multiple vertical surfaces, multiple horizontal surfaces, and I can paint them separately and then assemble them, or I can assemble them and then try to paint them, but then I've got to mask them, so I'm not sure the best path there for me. So, got some decisions to make there. I think I am actually, now that I'm thinking about it, just going to build it. It's just little things like that that they just take time, and you have to wait for things to dry. So I don't include drying time. I say something takes 100 hours. It also might have taken 24 hours just for paint to dry. Right? So I don't include that kind of time. Actually, time sitting at the desk working is somewhere in the ballpark of 100 hours, easy. One of my motorcycles, it might be 10, 12 hours. These more complicated projects. Really got a whole lot of time and not a lot to do. Come along for the. I was saying earlier to myself, I don't think anybody was watching at the time. Saying earlier, what I really ought to do is do a lot of post-processing of these videos. Because who's going to sit down and watch me cut 9 of these barrels off and drill out the hole and add the brass replacement for 45 minutes when I could just record it and cut it down, but it sounds like a lot of work since I'm not trying to be YouTube famous or anything. I guess the next best thing would be to like timestamp my video. Hire Raven. Yeah, I could just hire Raven. Be my video editor. Min has done a little bit of that. She did some she went through a bunch of our clear videos for one of our previous statics. Or just our raid video, not even and found funny moments in our raids and got a bunch of timestamps for me. And I went back and highlighted them. Did that too. It's true. But I don't have the skill set or the tools or the time to really learn to. If I wanted to try to make this a more visible platform or something, maybe it would make sense to put more time and effort into it. I get outs of it, the things I want to get outs of it. Mostly it's just sitting here talking with people. I've had some interesting conversations with people all over the world. You like talking? I've never noticed. One thing I need to get better about is filling dead air because after a while I'll just kind of sit here. Oh, and if you come into a Twitch stream and the streamer's just sitting in there, whatever he's doing and not talking, it's interesting. I'm not very good about just filling air though. Pirate, I thought about streaming our Stellaris stuff. Fun. People can come in and tell us what we're doing wrong. Somebody came in earlier and pointed out a typo in my about me. Apparently, I like rouge lights, rogue lights. There's that. I don't know about me. I have a bad feeling. A lot of gaps that I have to fill. This kit, it's not as nice as some of my other ones. Assembly quality. Two destroyers were from a different company, and they just joke is that you open the box, you throw glue in, you shake the box, and the kit comes out built. It's quite nearly that simple. Um, Such amazing build quality. This one, so much. I don't think I'm familiar with that one, Pirate. Piece done. Oh, this looks like a part that straddles the divide between the upper and lower deck. Starting to run out of things simply giving a look. Let's see. certainly don't want to add any of the small details to the decks where I got them painted. I could do the stacks, but it's just super glue today. That rules out most photo etch. Yeah, a lot of what I have left to do is probably beyond what I want to try for the day. So what did we get done so far? Let's see. I think I'm gonna kill this camera. Optimize that a little bit. Alright, what did we do today? We opened the box. I haven't attached the two hull halves. The hull comes in halves so that if you want to use the ship as just a simple waterline model, where it's just like the upper hull and plate, kind of like make it look like it was in the water. That all the ships I've built with their lower hulls. I like having the color. So I do need to attach this. I will probably do that off camera because it's going to be a pain in the ass, and I don't want to cuss too much on stream. Probably do that later. I haven't attached the main decks yet either, honestly, because the reason for that is because the turrets themselves. A lot of times when I build one of these kits, they'll have like a rubber ring in there that you can insert it later. This one doesn't have that, so I'll have to permanently attach them, and I don't want to do that yet, unless I just decide to leave them loose in the end. May end up doing. I don't. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So you can see that there's a step down main deck. That's where this guy will go. There. Got the aircraft hangar built. Goes like suspected. Oh. Not going to fit well because nothing's actually glued in place, but that's about where it will go. Got deck superstructure. This guy sits on that. This guy goes here. Stay without glue. Something I support. I'm gonna use a turret. For that piece, that's not real. And this goes up. There's another superstructure piece that's just a single piece, goes on top of that. And then some of the radar components. Got main gun, turrets. Done. So I made quite a bit of progress today. What do you think? Obviously a lot left to still do. Central deck house that goes here in the middle, 2 funnels, smokestacks, if you call them that here. Got another piece that goes here. Got the cranes that I need to assemble. I've got the catapults that I need to assemble. I need to do 1-inch guns, anti-aircraft. Sorry, this is actually the searchlight tower. Scrape off the anchor chains to put the actual anchor chain pieces I've got there. So still quite a bit to do, as you can see. But I think we made some pretty good progress today. I'm probably gonna wrap it up here. I've been streaming now for a little hours and my book is starting to hurt talking too much. And I need to think about my next steps. I don't want to just sit here on camera while thinking, because that's not going to be interesting to anybody. So I think I will probably call it. I may put a stream up later today, Final Fantasy, depending on what we end up doing. Interesting. Stream up. If not, then I won't. Yeah, this is. Well, Raven, if you followed me on Twitter, you would have gotten the announcement. So yeah. So yeah, I think I will stop here. Yep, exactly, calling you out. Probably won't do any more modeling of this weekend. Got some stuff in the morning. Pirate and I need to do Stellaris, probably talk about that. And I've got some yard work I got to do in the end. So modeling probably won't be again until next weekend. But yeah. I'll put this up on YouTube if you want to go back and see the earlier parts of it, although it may be kind of boring. And if you're interested in seeing when I live in the future, of course, here, set a notification bell. Follow me on Twitter. There's also I'm Johnny5. Just want to see videos in post where you skim through it at heart's content. Watch it as many. Share it with your friends. Find me over on YouTube with the same stuff. So thanks for hanging out, and we'll definitely catch you next time. As you can see me. Hi.